But yeah, that hit right there. What do you want a 6'5" guy to do, to go down to Bailey Hawkman's level, who's about as tall as me? And I'm not the tallest. What's Bailey Hawkman? 6'1", 6'2" if he's lucky with heels on. What do you want? What do you want Janarius Robinson to do? Do you want him to crawl and then tackle him? I mean, it's football, but then again, this is the ACC.
Hey guys, it's Terrence Nan. You're listening to Hear the Spear, presented by NoleGameday. Go Noles.
Hey, what's up? This is Peter Ward, aka E-Dub, in the house. We're listening to Hear the Spear, presented by NoleGameday. Go live, go Noles.
Hi, this is Charlie Ward, and you're listening to Hear the Spear, Go Noles.
This is Terrell Buckley. You're listening to Hear the Spear, presented by NoleGameday. No Bloody.
But perhaps better known as the greatest corner to ever step on a football field, Deion Primetime Sanders.
Great Deion Sanders, my brother. What's going on, man? I could wake up to that greeting every day, man. That was awesome.
Hello, Noles fans. This is former Seminole Derek Brooks, and you're listening to Hear the Spear, presented to you by NoleGameday.
James Wilder Jr. What's going on, James?
Thanks for having me on. FSOD, Florida State or Die, and go Noles.
William Bar None Floyd.
Gentlemen, what's up?
What is happening, guys? This is Logan from Hear the Spear, presented to you by NoleGameday. We are finally back. We've gone through a little bit of a headache there on my end. I was without a laptop for almost a week. I also had some exams going on, so it was just a really fun week on my end, but I'm excited to be back. I know the guys are too. We got a lot to talk about. We missed out on a lot. I'm very sorry. We've gotten a lot of messages on Twitter and Instagram asking, where's those podcasts at? Feels good to be back. So hopefully we can deliver for you guys and give you some entertainment and get ready for a bye week ahead. Tonight with me, we have a full show of our co-hosts. We got Dustin Lewis, our lead writer, and our head and graphic designer, Fisher Atkins. I almost forgot what your name was there, Fisher, and I'm very sorry about that.
Worries. I haven't talked to you in a couple weeks, so
it happens. It does. We haven't talked to each other like this in a while. Have y'all missed each other or no?
No. It's been a nice little break. I miss Dustin though.
Yeah,
the
longer I'm not around Logan, the better.
Dang, it really turned on me. I'm the one that had their laptop stolen out of their car.
Yeah,
I'm the one.
You wonder who stole it.
Yeah.
You wonder why this podcast hasn't been going on.
Well, you're probably mad at me, Dustin, because we recorded a very nice podcast. Fisher wasn't there. He had to go watch Teletubbies or something that night. So me and Dustin had to record. And I have to say it was a little bit smoother. I'm just, did you feel that way, Dustin? It was a nice podcast. And then the next day, the laptop was stolen, so couldn't put that one out. So we're just going to kind of sit here and recap a little bit of the last, couple weeks, but we want to jump straight into the NC State game. Have y'all had a good week without me?
Yeah, better now that Florida State's won consecutive games for the first time in forever.
Yeah, I agree. Florida State's on a two-game winning streak. They look like the best team in the Atlantic so far. So
we're gonna have to not record more often if it leads to wins.
Yeah, the followers, the listeners might not want us recording anymore because I'm sure we'll be the blame if Florida State gets trampled by Clemson in a week and a half. So, well, be all blame on us. But I said we jump right into it. We got a lot to talk about. It's good to see, the fan base now. There's a lot of energy. There's a lot of hope for where this team can go. The lowest point was trying to get to a bowl game, but it seems like there's a little bit more there now, and it seems like the fan base is trying to support Taggart as much as they can. It was really tough after the ULM game, but things are looking positive. Florida State takes care of the Wolfpack in Doak Campbell Stadium. Nighttime game, 31-13. Tamarian Terry had a nice game, and looking to that defense. Woo! What are y'all's initial thoughts of that game? I'll let you go, Dustin.
Yeah, like you just said, really for me it was the way the defense really stepped up and showed out, holding NC State to just 13 points. I know I said, well, I guess I didn't say since we didn't get the podcast out. I wrote last week that I thought NC State would be the worst team that Florida State has faced up to this point, and the Seminoles made them look like the inferior team from the opening. Well, outside of that first quarter, the first quarter was a little sloppy, but from then on, the offense got on track, scored a couple points, and just really all night, the defensive pressure on Bailey Hawkman and shutting down the Wolfpack running game was essential to that win.
Yeah, I would agree. I think what really stood out to me was just the energy and the effort that the team played with as a whole. This is one of the best defensive performances. This is one of the better defensive performances that we've seen from the Noles in quite some time. And we were kind of talking before the podcast. They held the Wolfpack to 13 points, and even had a really nice hustle play at the end there by Amari Gaynor. It was really a pride play because the game was essentially over at that point when NC State was running into the end zone, and Amari Gaynor comes and punches the ball out, and they pick it up, and so that was kind of the epitome of the game on Saturday night, was playing for pride and defending home turf, which was great to see. And we were talking before, and Florida State probably dropped about, Dustin, you said you tracked it, probably dropped about 8 picks that they could have had. So you imagine if Florida State even gets 2 or 3 of those, and it's that much better. So just really impressed with the effort that they played with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was watching from the stands, and about eight balls got onto some FSU defenders' hands and weren't able to come down with any of them. I want to say Cyrus Fagan dropped at least 3, but I mean overall he still had a great game. But pulling a couple of those picks. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was gonna ask, did you see Cyrus Fagan's reaction at, post game when he was asked about dropping picks?
Yeah. Started push-ups.
He looked really frustrated by it. You can tell that frustrates all of them, and it just affirms why they played DB, I guess. But he was saying, he told his teammates, he goes, if you drop a pick in practice, just start running. So these guys know, that's a big deal, and they got to start making some plays when they're given to them.
Absolutely. I mean, Bailey Hawkman was doing everything he could to get one of his former teammates a pick on Saturday night. Unfortunate.
By the way, just excited to see Bailey Hawkman. Wish him all the best. And
Hawkman high, baby.
Looked like it worked out better for one of the parties when he decided to depart FSU. Poor guy.
Yeah, no, that was a welcome to Doak Campbell Stadium at night. And Leavitt, I keep on saying Hornibrook, but Harlan Barnett kind of and Leavitt's there, but that defense came to play. It was nice to see. The crowd had to be close to what'd they say, 66,000, something like that,
right around 65,000. Yeah, it looked good on TV.
Yeah, no, it was a pretty packed crowd.
Like
Yeah, no, it was. There was a lot of energy there too. I think this team and this fan base and the crowd always does better if Florida State defense is playing well. Those sacks, those big hits, that's what Florida State's known for, destroying the offensive player, destroying the quarterback, annihilating the wide receiver in midfield. That's how you get that crowd woken up in Tallahassee. And it's starting to trend that way, and I'm sure we'll get talking about it in a little bit. But yeah, Bailey Hawkman played for NC State. Didn't work out so well for him. Hornibrook had a pretty nice game. He went 29 of 40 and had 316 yards, 3 touchdowns. Still have some problems there, and we'll get to it. In the quarterback situation into the bye week, and also, of course, we'll touch on a little bit of the Clemson game in 2 weeks. But he kind of had some problems there. Allowing sacks kind of come to him or run to them, and we'll get into that in a minute. Cam Akers is your leading rusher again. If you want, I'll let you talk in a second. Can you just don't interrupt me? I know you're mad that the Bengals aren't beating my Steelers right now because you put money on it.
Let's not talk about my gambling addiction.
Yeah. Richard Barnes, who does our betting articles, probably screwed Dustin.
Drew me in.
Yeah, exactly.
Dustin, we probably do need to talk about it after we finish recording, buddy.
Yeah.
We'll save the conversation
About time. Yeah, it's about time.
With a great idea, Fisher. We'll sit down and talk with him.
I've lost $40. I really need a big intervention right now.
You really do. Cam Akers, of course, is your leading rusher. It kind of started off slow for him, but it got cooking for him. I don't think Florida State had any rushing yards or much of any going into the second half, if I'm correct. I was at the game, and I think on the video board it was showing that he didn't have much of anything, or the offense as a whole rushing wise. But he went for 17 carries, 83 yards. That changed real quick, and a touchdown. Your leading receiver, which is pretty interesting. I called this on a podcast I was on with the Big Three Roll Up on their panel. I was very high on Ontario Wilson. We've heard good things about him during the spring, following into the fall practice. But he's kind of shown out. He went for only 4 receptions, but 91 yards and a big touchdown for the Noles. What are your takeaways, you guys, from Hornibrook, and kind of dropping down to Akers and Wilson for their nice nights for the Noles?
Yeah, I mean, first thing about Hornibrook, he really played a great game. I mean, finished with a career high 316 passing yards. He's never eclipsed that mark before in his career. Also threw 3 touchdowns, didn't turn the ball over. But I've got to say, Florida State got sacked 8 times. I mentioned this today in the Monday mailbag I wrote, but I really didn't think that you can blame the offensive line for all those sacks. There were certainly a few times the defense broke through the line very quickly to bring down Hornibrook, but I thought he was struggling to read the field. He was holding the ball for an extremely long time, and for some reason, it didn't really seem like he was ever throwing the ball away. He just held the ball and got sacked back there in the pocket. So really, that's something I want to see Hornibrook get better at moving forward, just going through his progressions a little bit faster, or at least when the defense is in your face, throwing the ball away.
And just to note on that as well, Hornibrook has been known for not being too careful with the ball and getting a little turnover happy sometimes. And he didn't throw any picks the other night, but there were 2 that NC State just dropped. So, lucky in that regard. And like you were saying, Dustin, sacked 10 times, 9 times?
8 times.
8 times? Well, still. And
still too many.
half of those were probably his fault and not the offensive line's fault. Now, I will say the offensive line, in my opinion, this might have been their worst performance of the season. NC State whooped them up front for most of the game, which was kind of why the Florida State offense was not allowed to get out to that fast start early. But Hornibrook's got to do a better job of getting the ball out of his hands and throwing it out of bounds if he needs to, and help out his offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell he's probably not used to having a bad offensive line in front of him after playing at Wisconsin, so he's adjusted a little bit. I did think personally the tackles weren't very good on Saturday night. I thought Bello got beat a lot, and also Roberts just had an uncharacteristically bad game.
Yeah, Bello struggled for sure. Ryan Roberts is so up and down to me, just all throughout the year. Sometimes one play he'll look very technically sound and make the right play, and the next he just sort of just implodes. So he's really play to play. It looked like Jawan Williams was back at practice today working with the first team. So that's a really good sign moving towards Clemson. It's kind of funny to say that Jawan Williams coming back to practice and getting healthy is a great sign, but I think that only helps you getting Jawan Williams back healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I mean, he's taken a big step forward, and it'd be really imperative to have him guarding whoever takes the field at quarterback's blindside against Clemson.
Without a doubt. I mean, just to say one more thing about Hornibrook while we're at it. I mean, did the ball just look like it was traveling through mud when it leaves his hands compared to Blackman? I mean, the ball looks really, really slow coming out of his hand. I don't know if that's just me or not, but there was a lot of hype about Hornibrook and him playing over Blackman. But I don't know too many people after this game that that can really support the idea that Hornibrook should start over Black.
Yeah, that's something I've noticed too. And although Blackman is a guy that likes to throw darts, very quick, and I mean it comes right to your hand, and it's going to be a stinger when it's out. But that kind of allows DBs to get time on their wide receiver, and even read the quarterback a little bit more. It kind of puts a struggle. But like you said, we'll kind of get into it now. Moving forward, did this game kind of solidify that Hornibrook should be the starter over Blackman, or do you feel like it's the reverse where, all right, Blackman, give him more extra time. He'll be fully healthy as expected as long as it seemed like Taggart did say after the press conference, he did tweak his knee on Friday, the day before the game. So that's why they kind of just decided to go with Hornibrook and felt a little bit safer there. But I did see on my hand, I was there at the game, and I did see Blackman there on the sideline kind of walking fine. And I actually saw him after the game jogging perfectly fine off the field into the tunnel. So I think healthy-wise, Blackman should be fine. But did this start, does this kind of tell you, what, Florida State's got to stick with Blackman, this is their starter? Or is it like, okay, Hornibrook, he had a decent game, and they've won the last two games with him. Should they keep him in there going to Clemson and Death Valley?
Yeah, I don't really think there's any question. If Blackman is healthy enough to play the game against Clemson, he's got to be the starter. I mean, he moves better in the pocket. He's got the stronger arm, like we've already talked about. He knows the offense like the back of his hand. And, I mean, he's earned the respect from his teammates. They fight for him. The leadership he displays on and off the field. I mean, after every touchdown Florida State scored on Saturday night against NC State, who was the guy meeting the offense as they were coming off the field? James Blackman. I mean, he's just the quintessential teammate you want. And regardless of how Hornibrook played on Saturday, which it was a subpar performance, he went 29 out of 40 for 316 yards and 3 touchdowns. But any way you want to put it, it was a subpar performance. Blackman has got to be your starter if he's healthy.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question. I think, again, I mean, I don't want to say Hornibrook played bad, because I don't think he did, but I would imagine Blackman just gives you a better chance to win, especially against a team like Clemson. I think Blackman really just has a much higher ceiling in terms of what this offense is able to do underneath Blackman, just with his arm strength, the way he throws deep balls, the way that the ball comes out of his hands so quickly, his versatility using his legs. Hornibrook is not nearly as fast or quick as Blackman. And so James Blackman gives you a much better chance to win just on the field. And then off the field, I think it's clear that this team just has way more confidence in Blackman. And I mean, rightfully so, as Hornibrook's only been there, 3 months, if that. So, yeah. Blackman's your guy, and I think Hornibrook is at times a nice change of pace. I like the way they kind of used him against a Louisville, putting him in every other drive or so, and kind of just giving the defense a different look, because I think he has some things that Blackman doesn't do as well, as far as touch passes, and I think Hornibrook might read the field a little bit better, just as far as IQ maybe goes, but Blackman definitely gives you the better chance to score more points.
Yeah, and I honestly think one of the bigger factors is that offensive line, because James Blackman, he's just better at getting away from pressure, eluding defenders, and even throwing the ball away. He does a great job of getting rid of it if there's nothing there. Blackman's been sacked 11 times in 3.5 games. He got injured against Louisville. Hornibrook has been sacked 8 times in, 6 quarters? Not even of playing time.
Exactly.
He didn't get brought down against Louisville, but, I mean, like we've talked about, all 8 came against NC State.
Yeah, and credit to NC State. I think they have a good defensive front, but that's no coincidence.
Yeah, and I think they kind of they watched their film, and they know what Hornibrook brings to the table. They were sending guys because they know, Hornibrook really doesn't look deep as much. It's not how Blackman, where he can stretch the field, which, we can talk about, and where he can play a big factor better than Hornibrook when they face Clemson. Blackman can stretch that field They were sending it, you could tell early on, and that's how they did so well early in that game, was NC State sending it quickly on Hornibrook because he kind of hesitates and he doesn't want to read past the linebacker group. And that's how they were able to get some success on bringing him down and causing trouble for him passing-wise. Well, on to the next one. Let's see what we got here. What is y'all's biggest area of growth the last 2 weeks for Florida State?
I'm going to give you a cop-out answer. It's got to be the defense. I mean, the defense. Yeah, I mean, seriously. Defense turned up against Louisville. Obviously, that was the game Marvin Wilson had just a dominant performance en route to FSU, totaling 6 sacks against the Cardinals. Defense was instrumental in the fourth quarter of that comeback victory, and they continue that momentum into this week against NC State, holding the Wolfpack to just 13 points, something the defense didn't do last year. The Florida State defense hasn't held a team to 13 points or less since 2017, which is honestly pretty wild. So these last 2 weeks, it's been imperative to see the defense start to have a little bit of success and just begin to build that confidence.
Yeah, without a doubt, just the defensive effort that we've seen really I think ever since the UVA game, I think they've kind of turned that corner as far as effort goes, as far as assignment goes. They look like they actually know what they're doing to an extent. I think there's still plays to be made on the field, but they've gotten progressively better. They've been taking a step forward, and like I said, the play there at the end against NC State, where NC State is about to score, and it's a meaningless play. They could score, and the game is Florida State still going to have the victory. And Amari Gainer says, "No, you're not getting in the end zone," and he chases the guy down and punches the ball out. Emmett Rice picks the ball up, and Florida State gets a stop. Multiple instances on the 4th and 1. Florida State stands up tall and gets that stop. And against teams like ULM and Boise State, Florida State just wasn't doing that. Teams were out hustling and outworking and just played better football. And so, no question, just the effort by the defense and certain guys like Janarius Robinson really coming along in these past couple of weeks. And at a crucial time when Joshua Kando has gone down with injury, you've seen the switch that Leonard Warner has made to inside linebacker, which I think has been great for him and really helped out Dontavius Jackson. And then the new guy on the block is Amari Gainer. Man, what a performance by that guy. I've already mentioned his name a couple times. So it seems like this defense is playing with pride, which is really encouraging to see.
Mm-hmm. That is true. Amari Gainer had a great game, 2 sacks, and he brings a lot of physicality to the game. I played with him at Childs here, local product from Tallahassee, and I got to spend some time with him, having to block him coming off from the edge, and that was wonderful. I enjoyed every bit of it. But, we saw him as a true freshman. He would practice with us with the varsity team. He was a true freshman. They actually had him at running back, and that's what he played a little bit of his freshman year there. But he quickly kind of got changed over to the defensive side, linebacker, and then he dropped down to weak side defensive end. And the one thing about him is he might look that kind of slimish, little Telvin Smith, that slim body, still, got some filling out to do, but he's extremely physical. And Florida State can really utilize him to get off those slow linemen at the end of games, to go off from the side and get to the quarterback quickly. And it seems like either Barnett and Leavitt are starting to figure that out, and it's working out well for Florida State's defense. But that tackle there was beautiful, and that only keeps the crowd hype and makes it feel a little bit better about that win when they leave on Saturday night.
Obviously,
go ahead.
Obviously, Logan and I have a little bit of a soft spot for Amari, considering we got to film his commitment video for NoleGameday a few years back. We did
take care of that, recruiting that commitment video, which was pretty cool. But yeah, great game by him, young guy. Still, there's a lot of he's still got growing to do, and he's only going to get a little bit bigger. But I'm just trying to note on, he can look that slim, but he's extremely physical. He's one of our most extreme physical guys on our team in high school, and he's bringing it to the table here. And it's good to see a Tallahassee product really show out like that. It's great, and it's nice to have
Absolutely.
it. Yeah, it's really nice. So definitely from my school.
And he was really primed to make an impact last year as a true freshman, but a fractured foot kind of derailed that during fall camp.
And that's where then I kept noting, because Durden, I believe, talked about that after the game. He noted on Amari and was so proud of him and how he's came back from that injury, and and they knew that what he would bring to the table, and good to see a healthy Amari Gaynor out there. It's helping out that defense quite a bit. Let's get to the what stood out to you guys, good and bad, with the win over NC State. Any we kind of talked about a lot of the good ones, but do you have any faults that you still see with Florida State on either offense, defense, coaching wise, player wise, that you can think of?
Really, this game, the worst thing I saw out of Florida State was the performance of that offensive line, because we've talked about the 8 sacks, but Florida State also really couldn't run the ball. I mean, even if you take away Hornibrook's yards that he lost for being sacked, Florida State only finished with 95 yards on 32 carries. With that added in, they finished with 32 carries for 53 yards. Hornibrook had -40 in lost sack yardage. So the offensive line going into a bye week, they've really got to work on some stuff before they head into Death Valley against really an elite Clemson defense. I mean, it's going to be a dogfight for this offensive line against the Clemson Tigers. They're going to need to have their best performance in a couple years.
Yeah. One of the biggest things that kind of negatively stuck out to me, I know we've talked a lot about positives, is penalties. FSU had 13 penalties for 99 yards. And that worked out against NC State, but that was NC State. Against Clemson, that's a different story. So they've really got to shore up on those penalties, and Taggart kind of said some of those were aggression penalties, and he's not necessarily going to punish guys for going hard. Things happen. We looked at the Janarius Robinson getting flagged for targeting. And that was a play. It was just an effort play by Janarius Robinson, and it's clear that there was no intent to draw a targeting foul. So there's stuff like that where you can't blame them for essentially making a hustle play, but there are still some things that you can control. So that was really what jumped out to me, was just the penalties, just sort of a reoccurring issue. And then the running game. Cam Akers only had 17 carries, finished with 83 yards. Kalen Laybourne only 3 carries. Cam Akers is having probably his best year at FSU so far. So I get feeding that guy, but still a little surprised not to see Kalen Laybourne get as many touches. We've seen Kalen Laybourne flash the past couple weeks, and so that's not necessarily a knock on those two guys, but maybe a knock on the play calling. I think you want to give both of those guys more at-bats, more chances to run the ball, because when they do run the ball, they're special. And I think Kalen Laybourne has shown his ability to do that. So only 3 carries on the day for Kalen Laybourne is a little surprising, although he did have a nice catch. Let's see, he had two receptions for 6 yards, which was good to see. They're using his versatility and lining him up in the slot. So that kind of stuck out to me. And then the other one was just the drop picks. That's been an issue seemingly all year, but especially reared its head on Saturday, dropping eight picks. That's a big deal. That's a big deal, and especially playing a team like Clemson. Oh, dang it! Every time.
Fisher's watching highlights.
Hold on. Every time I'm on ESPN, it plays an ad.
That's all right. That's all right. You're invested. We understand.
I thought that was Logan's Steelers game. I was about to freak out on him.
No, every time
you're
it plays an ad, it drives me
Pissed.
insane. I don't know how to turn it off. Because if I mute it, then y'all are muted.
Yeah, it's all right. We won't get onto it. It's only we're like 18 weeks into this. You've got on at least 15 podcasts. No worries, Fisher. Don't worry about it. It's okay.
Well, continue on.
They learn slower in Mississippi.
Y'all gotta quit with the Mississippi State jokes.
All right, continue. You're going off.
What's happening?
Oh no! Doesn't know how to mute the tab yet.
I did. I pressed mute. It doesn't work.
Well, some of us have headphones we use, and that usually works.
Whatever.
We'll let you have your time, sunshine.
Nope, I'm done.
We got a rage quitter.
I don't even remember where you ended at.
You know what? One thing though that I'm seeing that is helping the team though overall is, there's penalties and sometimes there's silly ones, but there's absolutely some that are just stupid to make, and they're usually personal fouls or hits that don't need to be taken. That's something that I've noticed at Florida State. They're getting smarter and not putting themselves in those kind of situations, I feel like, in the last couple of weeks. That's helping them a big time. It helps with their momentum going throughout the game. And it seems like whatever Taggart's doing behind the scenes, I don't know if they're doing stadiums, they're doing down and backs, bear crawls, elbows and toes. It's working. And that kind of goes to a little bit of like a guy that I think on my side, and personally, Levante Taylor has had a pretty nice couple of weeks ever since the Virginia game. He had to sit out during the ULM game. He was fully dressed, no helmet. It was pretty evident that Taggart was sitting him on the sideline. But I've thought that he's had a pretty nice season after his first week. And whatever Taggart's done, sat down and talked with him, and they fixed whatever was going on behind the scenes. In my opinion, I think it was stuff mentally. I don't think it was too much of play. Maybe there was some missed assignments during the first week, but I think this was more of a behind-the-scenes thing that happened in the locker room where he had to sit out the next week. But it kind of switched around. That kind of goes with him and DJ Matthews. Whatever Taggart's doing, it's working. I know there's been a lot of scrutiny on Taggart, that there's not been enough discipline, and there might have not been earlier because Taggart tries to be closer with his team. You can tell that he has an extremely close bond with these players, and it's only his second year with the program, but he has such a great bond with these players. But he's able to sit down with DJ Matthews, where there were some rumors and some talk and stuff that I've heard that he was wanting to transfer before the season even started, and now he's back after sitting out a week and not going with the team to Virginia, and he's having a pretty nice. He's back on the field and he's making some plays. And that goes the same with Levante Taylor. But whatever the discipline and whatever Taggart's bringing is helping this team, and it's also helping not cause them to put themselves in terrible situations with stupid penalties, which has been going on lately. And Dontavius Jackson has been pretty solid and had a solid game on Saturday, and it seems like whatever is going on there is working out well too.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I thought the result of the penalties was really the Florida State defense just wanted to kill Bailey Hockman. They were out to take his life. In the second half alone, Florida State had 3 personal fouls and 1 roughing the passer. 2 of those personal fouls came in the fourth quarter. Obviously, one was the Janarius Robinson targeting ejection, but I don't know what it is about that Florida State defense on Saturday night. They were out for Hockman's head. I mean, every play, Hockman was just getting up off the ground, and by the fourth quarter, he was limping around, and they even took him out and put in their third-string quarterback. So they wanted to kill him.
Jeez, that sounds wow. Jeez, can we even say anything?
Assault charges?
Yeah.
Corey Durden.
Should we just get to it? Let's just get to it. Janarius Robinson, that was pretty much the big clip of the game. That's Florida State defense. I'm so tired of people out there on Twitter saying, crown of the helmet, that's really the rules and all that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This is Florida State football. It's football in general, but this is Florida State football. You should be used to seeing your opposing guys, definitely the quarterback, get absolutely annihilated and like killed, like Dustin said. That's what fans love to see. That's what this program likes to see. That's what Taggart talked about before even coming to Florida State. You're talking about guys like Derek Brooks that comes in and absolutely obliterates people midfield, Nigel Bradham. This is what fired, I think, the defense as a whole. Having a successful defense for Florida State plays, of course, football-wise and the whole range of things plays huge. But for momentum-wise and getting the if you're at home, getting the crowd wild, but also getting that team on the sideline juiced up, ready to get in and, have their chance to get on the plays and just wreck somebody. That's what Florida State's defense is. It's what it's supposed to be. LaMarcus Joyner, who's probably the hardest hitting for how small he is, was one of the hardest hitting guys on defense. And that just kind of set the tone for how the game was going to be played for the rest of how many minutes there were. You know what I'm saying? And of course, you got Telvin Smith, Nick Moody, like I said, Nigel Bradham. That just sets the tone for this team. But yeah, that hit right there. What do you want a 6'5" guy to do, to go down to Bailey Hockman's level, who's about as tall as me? And I'm not the tallest. What's Bailey Hockman? 6'1", 6'2" if he's lucky with heels on. What do you want? What do you want Janarius Robinson to do? Do you want him to crawl and then tackle him? I mean, it's football, but then again, this is the ACC. They're not going to allow them to appeal that. Taggart can't appeal it or whatever, but I wish Taggart would have said something after the game, because that was atrocious. Dustin, you also played football too, Fisher. So that chest, those pads that you put on your chest, that is probably one of the most safest places to have a hit happen to you. You're guarded well right there along with your shoulder pads, but where do you want Janarius Robinson to go and hit him? You want him to go for his legs and just like really, really hurt him, probably ruin his friggin' career, smashing him in between Durden? Get out of here. Let the guys hit. This is friggin' football. And I was just complete shock because I during the game I didn't even see. I was like, what's happening? They were reviewing it and all that jazz. It's just complete. It's complete stupidity sometimes. It's football. Man up.
So I'm sitting here looking at the screenshot someone tweeted earlier today of the moment of impact where Janarius Robinson hits Bailey Hockman, and first of all, there's no helmet to helmet contact, none whatsoever. When I was in high school learning how to play football, I was taught to put your face mask in their armpit when you're tackling them, and that's exactly. I don't know if that's how other people learn, but that's how I learned. That's how I learned to tackle. Is you put your face mask in their chest and their armpit. And then grab cloth, wrap up, take to the ground. That's exactly what's happening right here. And like you said, Logan, I mean, what are these guys supposed to do? I mean, do you take out his knees, tear his ACL? Like, Are you supposed to just grab him with your hands and throw him down? Like, no. You got to allow these guys to play football. And like I said, there's no helmet-to-helmet contact, and it's just crazy. And we've seen guys just in the past, the rule is so unclear. I remember reading recently an interview that someone did with Grant Delpit from LSU, the safety there, and they asked him about targeting and his thoughts on it, and he said, honestly, I don't know the rule. I don't know what is targeting and what's not, and that's it's certainly frustrating because now you're losing Janarius Robinson, your best edge rusher for the first half of the Clemson game, and you just can't afford that, and so it's really unfortunate and just a real bummer.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not just that. Florida State, is going to go into a bye, but they're about to play their biggest opponent. Now people are, nowadays this is kind of like a rivalry game. I still, of course, Florida and Miami are ahead of it, but this is a huge game for them. They have a lot of momentum going, but Florida State does lose their best defensive end. They're without Kando for the rest of the year. And they lose one of their best defensive ends with Janarius Robinson, who has also been pretty hot. Go back and watch a couple of these. Go watch a little bit of film, but he's been pretty nice for Florida State's defense, and obviously him and Durden have had some solid couple weeks. We already know what Marvin Wilson is. He's an NFL product. He'll go top 10, top 15 at the latest in this upcoming year's draft. But Just like going back, 6'5", that's just silliness. If he goes up anymore if he goes up to his height or whatever, he hits his helmet, then yeah, it's targeting, you're out, blah, blah, blah. But he did the best of his ability, and it's just kind of silly at this point. It's getting stupid. But shoot, we still got film on it. We'll be posting that video. I saw one from Florida State Seminoles on their YouTube, just absolutely drilling Hockman, and Durden was there too, just peanut butter and jelly right there. Easy money. But like you said before, Dustin, before our meeting, before recording, Durden has been pretty nice. I like the energy that he brings to this defense. I think that's what has been kind of missing, kind of a little bit of some nastiness, some Florida State nastiness. Things you better be smart with it, but bring some nastiness in there and wreck. And that's kind of what we saw against the Boise State game. There was the defensive play, and at least the defensive line was there to absolutely wreak havoc. And I think that's something Corey Durden's been doing the last couple of weeks. Well, actually, the entire season.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, he's kind of hidden a little bit, playing alongside an NFL draft prospect and Marvin Wilson. But in his own right, Corey Durden has been very solid this season, along with Robert Cooper. I mean, that big three-man defensive front was something that we talked about coming into the season. We thought Florida State would have a lot of success with those three guys manning the middle. And really, the first couple weeks they didn't. But now everything's kind of starting to click into gear, and, it's just going. They're in a rhythm at the moment, and they've got to continue that against Clemson.
Mm-hmm. That is true. Going to the defensive side of things, of course, Leavitt came to help. William Taggart and Leavitt have a very close relationship. They're good friends, but he's played a pretty big impact, and we can't push it to the side. This is a big help that he's brought to this team. But this is Josh Brown, who we'll get to in a minute also, who's gotten some playing time recently. This is what he said about Jim Leavitt, the new Florida State defensive analyst. He says, "It's incredible to have a top-tier guy like him coming in and teaching. Of course, he doesn't know our specific scheme yet, but he's incredibly knowledgeable about the game. It's been helpful. He brings energy to the defense, and as you can see, our energy levels went up as well. I'd say he pretty much has played a pretty big part in that as well." So what I take out of that is that Leavitt still doesn't know the entire scheme yet, the specific scheme he's noting on. So things are kind of looking, things are going to keep improving with Leavitt there. What are y'all's thoughts about Josh Brown, linebacker there for Florida State, on Leavitt?
Yeah, I agree with him. Obviously, Leavitt joined Florida State a couple weeks into the season, so he hasn't been here since the very beginning of fall camp when Florida State installed a lot of their defensive packages. And, he's really just picking up everything on the fly, joining a college football team mid-season. I mean, I can't imagine how tough that must be, even for an analyst, to join a team 3 weeks into the season and, just have to get on the ground and start running with everything. And since he's joined, Florida State's defense has made a big improvement, and I don't think it's any coincidence.
Yeah, I mean, I think when Josh Brown says he doesn't know the specific scheme yet, I think just in terms of maybe how they call things and terminology, but Jim Leavitt is a 3-4 coach. This is the defense that he knows, and I believe he knows it better than Harlan Barnett knows the 3-4. So, from that standpoint, I think he's still learning kind of what Florida State, how they run this defense, but I would say that he has a better handle on how to run it, which is super valuable for this defense. And ever since he's been hired, right before the UVA game, this defense has been trending upwards. And I think that's any coincidence. And what he says too is just the energy that Leavitt brings. I mean, what was it after the Louisville game? That video of Leavitt dancing in the middle of the circle. I mean, how often does a defensive analyst that's been with the team for less than 2 weeks start dancing in the middle of the circle after a big win at home? I mean, that's so uncharacteristic for a defensive analyst, but I guess not for Jim Leavitt. And just an incredible hire by Taggart to go and get that guy. And I think he's only helped this defense and helped these guys and brought a lot of excitement as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree that you got to give some props here to Willie Taggart. This is a move that really needed to be made, and he did it. I think there was reports about Leavitt not wanting to coach at least this year whatsoever. He kind of wanted to have some rest off after leaving Oregon, but I guess Taggart got on the phone with him, talked him into it, and this hire has been very nice for Florida State. So props to Willie Taggart. I think from what we've seen the last couple of weeks, there's some really nice progress that you like to see from a coach that had a really rough season last year. And, fans are, willing to stick by him and support him. That move right there is a big one. It's going to say a lot at the end of the season, I think. Another guy, Dennis Briggs, young guy on the defensive line, also noted about the defensive play. He said it's just energy, a whole lot of energy. Talking about Leavitt, he's been really great so far. The past couple of weeks, it's always been energy, just telling us to move around and not really have no lackadaisical stuff. Just continue to bring a lot of energy each day. And that's from Dennis Briggs. And I also do remember, I think Willie Taggart said today, and a couple of the players have, while they were talking to the media, noting on, during practice, this is a defensive analyst telling guys, stop walking, run, let's get going. Don't be walking around and all that kind of stuff. And it's working out so far, which is also pretty interesting too, because Willie Taggart on the press conference after their win over NC State noted on that this last week of practice was actually their best of the year so far. He thought it came through really solid, and the team had full of energy. And this is probably could be a good case from Jim Leavitt coming in and bringing some juice to those practices, and it's working out pretty well on the field so far for that defensive side. I want to note on, this is just a snippet. I really liked Warren Thompson. Didn't do a whole lot, but you can see that he's got the potential there. He's got a strong upside. I really like that little Tony toe tap catch that he had. A little two tap. He got both feet in too. He didn't really need to, but he got them. But I think that's another weapon that I think will work well with whichever quarterback. But Blackman moving forward, as we're expecting, Warren Thompson could be pretty special for FSU moving forward. And of course, we can talk about Tamarion Terry, who's he's faster than you really think he is. I didn't think that was going to be a touchdown whenever he scored it. I believe was it the first one in midfield, and he ran in between two defenders. Was that the first one or the second one?
It was the first one.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting him to score a touchdown there, but holy smokes, that for that size of a guy, really tall and lanky, to get in that end zone, pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's just a product of all the talent Florida State has at wide receiver with Warren Thompson. I mean, there's so many talented players in that receiving core that even though Warren Thompson is a good player in his own right, it's just hard for him to get consistent snaps behind Tamarion Terry, Keyshawn Helton, Trayshawn Harrison, DJ Matthews. I mean, the list goes on. Ontario Wilson, who I'm forgetting about somehow, even though he just led the team in receiving. I mean, there's just so many guys. You never know who's going to step up each week.
Yeah, and that we've got to start giving a little bit of some props, even though he's got a whole package full of talent. Ron Dugans comes in from Miami, and he comes with a lot of guys that have talent, and it seems like he's put the right guys in the right situations. And of course, this goes to Browse too, but Ron Dugans is coming through and making sure the right guys are out there, and he's obviously seen what's going on during practice. And I think this, being a coach is harder than anything, but making sure that these guys that are having a good practice during the week, blah, 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 but also, putting those guys out there and relying on them and they actually show out and produce very well. Ontario Wilson is out there with your leading receiving, scores a touchdown too. Pretty impressive, and props goes to Ron Dugans, who's had a pretty rough couple weeks going in before the season started with the loss of his father. before the season started.
Call me crazy, but is this is the most confident that I feel about a receiver group since Rashad Green left Florida State.
Yeah, that's an interesting topic to be had.
And maybe the most depth since 2013, because I don't know that there was a whole lot of depth on the 2014 team, but you still had Rashad Green. But just from a point of view, I mean, so many guys to go to, like y'all mentioned, Helton, Wilson, Terry, Thompson, Matthews, Gavin. I'm probably missing a couple as well. But the amount of weapons that you have, and I mean, Hornibrook's probably loving this. Is probably the most talented group of receivers he's ever been able to throw to, which is, probably why his stats are the best he's really ever recorded, eclipsing a number that he's never hit before. Really just the beneficiary of guys like Terry and Wilson just making incredibly athletic plays.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, they're stacked with talent there. And we'll see, and we'll kind of get to it at the end of this podcast, how Blackman, if that's who we're all kind of on here expecting to play against Clemson, how that can be utilized to kind of lengthen the field a little bit more with Blackman's skill set going deep.
Season. I think after the Virginia game, we recorded a podcast, and we really gave Ricky some high praise for his start to the season. Aguayo started the season 3 for 3, knocked in a 53-yard field goal against Virginia that really no one thought he had a shot at. And from there, we kind of thought Ricky's troubles had kind of faded as he entered his senior year, and instead it all came rearing back against Louisville when Aguayo missed 3 kicks, 2 of them by such a wide margin that it was really ugly to see from a college kicker. And he follows it up by coming to the game against NC State and missing another chip shot. He did go 1 for 2 in the game against NC State, thankfully. And to top it all off, for the final 2 extra points of the game, Aguayo was benched for walk-on kicker Parker Grothaus, who has taken over the kickoff duties ever since Logan Tyler's demotion from his DUI.
Yeah, Dustin hit it pretty well.
So
yeah. Ricky's putting him in a tough situation. I mean, of course, it wasn't that meaningful maybe for this game against NC State, but Louisville for sure. I mean, he's putting them in tough situations, and it seems like it's definitely mental. Like if it goes with his brother with Roberto, it's all mental. We've seen how well they can play, but I mean, now what you were probably about to allude to, Dustin, competition wise.
Yeah, I'm ready to never see Aguayo on the back of a Florida State uniform again. I want Willie Taggart to slide him to the end of the bench, put Grothaus out there, give Ryan Fitzgerald a few shots. I mean, really anybody. Give Cam Akers a couple kicks. I don't care. I don't care who kicks the ball, as long as it doesn't start with
Robert Cooper.
Aguayo.
Yeah, I was about to say we were big on special teams, and that was during our preview of having Robert Cooper. We were talking about him having the kick return capabilities, but could we see a chance where Robert Cooper comes in and is kicking 45-yard field goals in Death Valley on next Saturday?
I mean, he's got a thick enough lower body.
The biggest thing for me is I mean, a testament to Ricky Aguayo and his struggles is looking at the Louisville game, missing 3 kicks, leaving 9 points on the board. And it's just a different story if he makes those 3 kicks, because you're looking at going from 35 to 24 to 44 to 24. It's just a different narrative, and it gives you just all the more confidence. So it's really a difference maker. And so they're going to have to find somebody. And I don't know if maybe give Ryan Fitzgerald a couple kicks. We'll see. But they've got to have that on lock for sure.
I kind of want to just note on Cam Akers too, not like a crazy stat night for him, but just watching film on him, talk about the whole 180 from him from last year and now. he's so damn smart this season with what he's hitting, the holes he's hitting, being patient, bringing plays outside of his tackles if he knows the inside stuff. He's playing extremely smart, and also he's extremely hard to tackle. I remember watching one play, I believe I tweeted it, but he should have been tackled right off the rip. But he gets through it. He's a tough guy to tackle, and he's having a phenomenal season, and he's going to be drafted. And he's one of the best running backs right now in college football. I just wanted to note on him having such a big turn from last year into this year. He had a chip on his shoulder, wasn't happy about his performance in 2018, but props to him. This running back is pretty special. And, there's a lot of talk about Kalen LeBourne not getting a lot of reps, even though he's been getting quite a burn-in and he's getting some plays. But, they want to have LeBourne out there. I think it's just kind of like the fan base. And even me, I want to see LeBourne out there. I think he's extremely talented. I think he's better right now if they're going to put him in there for pass game situations. But, this is Cam Akers' show this year. As long as he's healthy, keep him in there. He's one of the best running backs right now. And from what I've heard on my end, Kalen LeBourne is kind of set. He's fine with this. He's not going. There's a whole lot of transfer talk. He's not going to be transferring this year. He knows he'll be the number one guy going next year. This is the Cam Akers show in 2019.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, I agree with you. Cam Akers, he's gotten the bulk of the carries. Cam Akers has 115 rushing attempts in 5 games. Last year, he had 161 in 12 games. So really, the whole identity of this offense has been to feed Cam and see if it works. And if not, let the quarterback throw a couple to, that receiving core that can pretty much have any guy out there producing. So this is an offense with a lot of talent. It's really just going to have to rely on its offensive line to be capable enough for them to keep being deadly throughout the rest of the season.
Any notes on good old Cam Akers there, Fisher Adkins?
I mean, y'all kind of already summed it up. Just the 180 that he's made from last year, just looks like a different player with a different mindset. The patience that he has on every single carry is outstanding. Last year, seeing how he pressed and tried to make every big run last year. And this year, I mean, he's taken 3 yards if he needs it, and occasionally those 3-yarders turn into 7-8 yards, and then eventually, you see, like late in the fourth quarter, he busted the game wide open with that dagger at the end there. But just his vision, his patience, the trust that he has in the offensive line, and I think he's not playing, to pad his stats. He's playing just to move the ball for this offense, and that's clear. And he's just the right mindset, and it it goes to show you that if you do it the right way, that you're going to get rewarded. And so Cam Akers is drawing a lot of attention from scouts right now, and has established himself as one of the nation's premier running backs. And he's living up to who everyone thought he would be. And it's exactly what Florida State needs. And if Cam Akers is running the ball well, I mean, it's going to be tough to stop this offense.
Mm-hmm. And, he had every right in 2018 to blame his poor performance on that dreadful offensive line.
Yeah.
Instead, you didn't get any excuses out of Cam. He just went to work this offseason, came back a better and smarter player, and now you're seeing him at his best so far through his college career.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Hard work and determination pays off.
Exactly. And what was the stat from last year? I think he had 2 yards total without being touched last year. I mean, so like you said, every right to blame it on the offensive line and just say, I'm doing all that I can. And but Cam Akers is a special kind of guy, and we see a lot of guys. It's not that rare to see a guy with his skill set, but I think what makes Cam so special is just the mentality. I mean, we've seen guys crumb through Florida State. A guy that sticks out in my mind is a guy like Mario Pender. All the talent and all the speed and everything as far as a skill set goes, but not the right mindset. And so, I really don't think that Cam Akers is a generational special athlete. I mean, he's incredibly talented, but just the mindset and the work ethic that he brings, I think, is what really separates him. My head coach in high school, we had a player that played in the U.S. Army All-American game, and so my coach went down to that game and he ate lunch with Cam Akers there when he was playing in the U.S. Army All-American Bowl, and he just came back raving about, it wasn't his speed or strength that impressed him, but just the way that he carried himself, the way he talked, the way that he, just the kind of guy that he is. It just makes him so special, and you're seeing it this year.
Mm-hmm. His touchdown on Saturday night came from the 4th and 1, worth noting there, and that was his only touchdown of the night. I still went over 80 yards, and yeah, just talking about him, he's just watched some film on him. It's pretty impressive, the flip that he's had from last year. Some note here on a possible transfer, but transfer in the works from wide receiver Demarcus Adams. He hasn't seen any playing time from Florida State since its time here. And something that is worth noting, this was first reported from 247 Sports. But yeah, like we talked about earlier, Ron Dugans has a stacked squad of wide receivers. Jordan Young, who was a big recruit coming in, they wanted to make sure he wasn't going to Tennessee. Still hasn't found a lot of playing time from Florida State either. But Demarcus Adams is has entered the transfer portal and intends on leaving Florida State. We'll see. We'll keep an eye on that. Just wanted to note there.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, it was kind of expected to have at least one of those wide receivers from the 2018 class transfer out, because Florida State signed 5 really good wide receivers in that class. Keyshawn Helton might have been the lowest. I can't remember. He was close, or maybe he was the lowest ranked player in the 2018 class. And I mean, obviously, he's been outstanding in Garnet and Gold thus far. So when you have a recruiting class that's bringing in 5 wide receivers, it's hard to get everyone the touches necessary to keep them happy.
Mm-hmm. I want to go over to the pro Noles. We haven't really talked about a lot of the pro Noles this season. There hasn't been a whole lot to talk about, except for Dalvin Cook. We can talk about Dalvin Cook, and I kind of want to get to Jameis Winston too, which is, I like talking. I'm a big NFL guy. I love watching NFL games, even though I'm a Steelers. Even though we just won a pretty impressive game here from my Mason Rudolph, my quarterback of the future.
Nice one over the
Bengals. Let's talk some Bobby Hart on that Bengals offensive line.
Yeah, that's okay.
Andy Dalton just got sacked 8 times.
Anyways, nice 27-3. I'll take it. My quarterback went 24 of 28. Anyways, so let's start with Jameis Winston. We'll get to Dalvin Cook to finish it off. But Jameis Winston, the last 3 weeks, of course, we saw, he played week 1 against San Francisco. Wasn't that pretty, threw 3 interceptions. But the last 3 weeks, Jameis Winston has looked pretty nice. They should have won that game against the Giants, and they did beat the Panthers. But this was recorded on Monday, so yesterday, put up 55 points, even though the Donovan Suh scored a pick 6 for them. But wow, in LA too, across the friggin' country, Jameis Winston is having a great start to the 2019 campaign. This is money year for him. He is their franchise quarterback, and I think he's kind of just making sure he solidifies that. Over 380 yards the last 2 weeks. He scored 3 for 4 touchdowns on Sunday. He had 1 interception, but still, what an impressive game from him. And the last 3 weeks have been pretty solid. And I think, I'm watching First Take talk about him. They gave him a lot of heat to start the season, and they did last year. But props to him. I think he's playing. He's playing so much more smarter, and it's so easy to tell. And with how he's reading the defenses and where he's throwing, if it shouldn't be thrown there, then throw it away. That's all he really needed to fix. Make sure he's not throwing stupid things and not trying too much, And his wide receivers are also helping, and Mike Evans is coming in clutch. Godwin is stupid good for them right now. But yeah, Jameis Winston. I know you're a Bucs kind of fan on the on the underside Fisher. And I know Dustin is a true fan because Fisher, you're a Titans you're a Titans fan because you lived in Tennessee, but
I've watched more Bucks than I've watched.
He loves Marcus Mariota.
I really don't.
I know you've talked a lot of trash about him on here.
I really don't love him. This is like you said. Oh, you got it. You've already interrupted me. Go ahead.
I will say, made a nice little chunk of change on this game. Had Bucks +9.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, addict.
Easy win.
We still need to have this talk with him after this podcast. If it
make sure to stick around, Dustin.
But really, I mean, Jameis Winston in the last couple weeks, I've been really impressed with his command of Tampa Bay's offense. He's beginning to just show signs of taking that leap in the final year of his deal, with finally having a competent offensive coaching staff around him. I mean, you've got Bruce Arians, you've got Byron Leftwich, his offensive coordinator, who's really called some great games this season so far. So it's nice to finally see Jameis Winston, for one, have a defense that holds opponents to under 35 points a game, and for two, to have an offensive staff around him that knows how to draw up the best game plan for Jameis Winston, because I really thought that was something Dirk Cutter failed to do during his time in Tampa Bay. He didn't use Winston to his strengths. So really, I'm happy for Jameis. I hope the season, I hope it improves. I hope Tampa Bay wins the NFC South and gets into the playoffs. And hopefully Jameis ends up being extended in Tampa Bay for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. Jameis, we talked a lot about this, I remember, in the offseason, just about how Bruce Arians would have a big impact on Jameis and the Bucs overall, and that certainly is the case, and got to mention Byron Leftwich as well. So this is, like you said, Logan, this is money year. This is year 5, I believe, for Jameis, and so this is the year that's going to kind of, I don't want to say make or break. This is kind of the defining year for Jameis to see, what he's got and if he really has what it takes to be a franchise quarterback. And so far, he's getting the job done, and he needs the Bucs to help him out a little bit more. They just blew that lead against the Giants 2 weeks ago, but bounced back strong and got a win over one of the league's better teams in LA. Chris Godwin, fantasy owners were happy if you started him. And then obviously Mike Evans and O.J. Howard is a guy that pretty inconsistent at times, but high upside. So, excited for Jameis, and hopefully he can keep going. And then Dalvin Cook is cooking this year so far. 410 yards on the ground, 5 scores, already outpacing his previous 2 seasons by a wide margin. And some are considering him the best running back in the league this year so far, which I don't know that you can really argue that, in my opinion. So it's exciting. However, I do have just a huge hole in my heart still not seeing Derwin James on the field.
Yeah, no, imagine having Derwin James out there too.
That would be.
Yeah, no, Dalvin Cook has been stupid good. As FSU fans, we know what he brings to the table when he's fully healthy, and it's absolutely dirty. One of the best running backs in college football. He was obviously the best in Florida State history there, being the leading rusher all time in yards. And Dalvin Cook, not only, he's making the right cuts, he's stupid and breaking ankles, but he's physical, he's hard to tackle at times. And he's also smart about himself and trying to stay healthy too with some of the tackles that he takes. He's impressive. Although this last weekend wasn't so great, but I believe he's still the leading rusher in the NFL right now. Incredibly talented, and hopefully the Vikings can figure out a way to keep him cooking.
Good one.
You like that one? You like that one, Dustin?
Super original.
You like that one? That was good. But
no, because I had a cooking thing coming up. You took it.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, you're not allowed to do that. It gets really corny if you do it. So yeah, that's kind of like the NFL talk there. Also, Nigel Bradham had a pick for the Eagles
Local product.
Yep, another local product out of
McCullough County.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And sealed up that game. Was that Sunday night? Yeah. So yeah, it took
Thursday night.
Thursday night. My bad. I'm a complete idiot, and I don't actually watch NFL football. And actually, this kind of gets back to Jameis. Playoff run. Could there be one? The Saints are running with Teddy Bridgewater right now. Still going to take a good while before they see their starting quarterback with Drew Brees out on the field. I won't see him for a while, but the Bucks, if they can get some stuff fixed on the defensive side, Jameis is running this offense very soundly. They're scoring points. There is a really good possibility that Jameis could lead them to the playoffs. So something interesting to watch, and happy to see him having some success because he's gotten a lot of heat, as he probably should, but we can get all into that. We could just do a whole Bucks podcast for that. Under that organization and actually just have some success there is pretty damn impressive. And Jameis Winston is doing his job. And if it continues this way and he has a very solid season, time to pay him. He is your franchise quarterback in Tampa Bay.
And we're gonna know a lot about Tampa Bay's playoff chances over the next 2 weeks. They have 2 big divisional games. Tampa Bay travels to New Orleans next weekend for a 1:00 game against the Saints. The weekend after that, they'll be playing against the Panthers in London. So back-to-back big divisional matchups that Tampa Bay really needs to pull out to improve their playoff chances.
Mm-hmm. Real quick, before we end it, this is a bye week for the Seminoles on Saturday. Both Clemson and them do not have a game. First Take will actually be there next Friday morning. So this is kind of starting to amp up a little bit more. Right now, it's on the 6-day, whatever the ACC does with the TV. But this will be on ABC. I don't know, 6-day option. There we go. My bad.
Yeah.
It's going to be either 3:30 or 7:30. And if it's at 7:30, then you got the main crew with Kirk Herbstreit. And forgetting the name. I know there's Reese Davis, but he's not there anymore. Who's the other guy? No one's. Oh gosh, hold up. Wait.
It's not Fowler, right?
Chris Fowler. Yep, you're right.
It is Fowler.
It is Fowler. Chris Fowler. So yeah, if that game's at 7:30, then you got the primetime crew from the ESPN, ABC, all that kind of junk. But yeah, so we'll keep an eye on that. But yeah, First Take's going to be there, Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman. And I just want to kind of get y'all's thoughts on just looking ahead. We'll probably record at least another podcast before fully previewing the Clemson game. But y'all give me y'all's thoughts on what y'all are kind of anticipating heading into this bye week and moving forward to Clemson.
Yeah, I mean, first off, I don't really think anyone's expecting Florida State to go into Death Valley against the number 1 team in the country, defending national champions, and come out with a victory. Unless you really have on those garnet tinted glasses. But it's not going to be like last year. I mean, obviously last year Tigers came into Tallahassee, popped Florida State in the mouth, beat them down 59-10, and that was really one of the main points of the season, where from there on Willie Taggart just took he just took a ton of shit for the rest of 2018 after that game. So really, I think it's important for Florida State to go into this game on the road, not melt down against the best team on their schedule, and just keep it as close as they can. I'm expecting Clemson to pull this game out probably around 38-20, something like that. I think it'll be closer than expected, but in the end, I mean, Clemson's going to pull away.
I mean, yeah, this is a week for Florida State to, one, get healthy, get guys some rest, especially Cam Akers, get him fresh, ready to go.
And Blackman.
And Blackman. That was the next one. But Cam Akers has got to be ready to roll. He's got to get a lot of carries. He's got to be ready to take on that load against Clemson.
He's in that cold tub.
Yep, for sure. This is a week to get the offensive line. They had a pretty bad showing against NC State. It's time to get them, back and get some fundamental drills going, get their confidence back up, get them fired up. My question a little bit is, so like you said, Dustin, nobody really expects Florida State to go into Death Valley and pull out a win. I don't really want to be the person that does think Florida State can do that. Not saying they can't, but, seeing what we saw against Clemson playing North Carolina, I think Clemson is beatable, but they normally have a game like that every year. So it's not really a super big surprise to see them, go into a trap game in North Carolina and play poorly. So my question really is 5-0 as it stands right now, Wake Forest team right after Clemson. So maybe table expectations for that Clemson game and don't, waste all of your resources in a game that you're probably going to lose anyway. And then, what happens if you get guys hurt, you show all your cards, and then you lose to Clemson, and then you go to Winston-Salem the next week and then lose to Wake Forest. So I think there's kind of got to be a decision as to how much you really want to go all out or not for this game. And just looking at what's ahead, because Wake Forest is a definite must-win.
And I think that all depends on, certainly how Florida State begins that game against Clemson. I mean, if Florida State starts out well, gets out to an early small lead, I don't think that they should table anything. I think they should go all out and, try and push the Tigers as much as they can on the road.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, why not? This is a game that Clemson is certainly going to get up for. Dabo Swinney, ever since he's become the head coach of the Tigers, there's always been this rivalry with Florida State. And, even though the Seminoles have fallen down a little bit, I don't think Dabo is going to let his team look past them one bit. Clemson's going to be prepared for this game. It's not going to be like on the road at UNC last week with a bye week, looming in their heads. They're going to come out. Clemson is on a bye as well. They're going to come out of this week extremely focused on this game against Florida State. Right. Florida State has to do the same. Obviously, that game against Wake Forest is going to be huge for FSU season, considering they're likely going to drop to 3-3 after the game against the Tigers. That back-to-back road game with Wake Forest, who, as you mentioned, is undefeated and ranked to this point, that is going to be a crazy game in North Carolina.
Yep.
And I think, I don't know. This is an interesting one because you most likely have James Blackman starting. I think he spreads the field a lot better than Alex Hornibrook will. But like you said, I think going back to Cam Akers, spreading the field more actually does better for Cam Akers because NC State was doing a pretty decent job in that first part of the game. That's why they didn't have really any rushing there for Florida State. Cam Akers was kind of stopped there because they knew that Alex Hornibrook wasn't going to really bring that deep threat. And I think in this game, this kind of opens up the game more for Cam Akers. Dalvin Cook was kind of able to do it against Clemson a little bit during his time with Florida State. I think this is a pretty interesting game. You bring back Juwan Williams, who, like we said earlier, we are extremely shocked that this is such a big deal for this offensive line, but it really does play a big role. Florida State is definitely going to want to come into this game and try to compete at their best ability against one of the best teams in the country. They might not be one of the top 3 teams playing right now, but Dabo Swinney is one of the smartest coaches in college football. And Trevor Lawrence has kind of been off a little bit to start the season. They had a rough time with the Tar Heels in North Carolina. And it's going to be interesting to see if Florida State can have not just only its best play on the field, but the coaching-wise. This is where some of these coaches, like your defensive analyst, who's not a coach, but your defensive analyst, Jim Leavitt, but also Kendall Briles, mix it up. Do you fully send it on the Tigers? I think all fans would like to see that. This is a big, massive game for ACC play, and also, you play well, recruiting, a lot of things going to this. So we'll be interested to see. We'll fully preview this one definitely next week. Just kind of wanted to get y'all's initial thoughts and looking ahead. Well, I think that's pretty much, we went well over probably an hour and 15 minutes. It's looking like, wow, pretty long. We made sure to get as much as we could out to you guys. Again, we're very sorry about not being able to record the last week and a half, but we're excited to be back. We got a lot to talk about, of course, for Clemson week next week. But we'll probably get on here more and talk about the bye week and some thoughts that we have more. But yeah, as always, you can find us on iTunes, you can find us on Google Play, you can find us on Soundcloud and Spotify. If you're on iTunes, feel free to rate us 5 stars. It always helps grow the podcasts for other Noles out there wanting to listen. And you can also follow us on Twitter at Hear the Spear. We always appreciate you guys engaging with us. And if you ever want to throw a question to us, we will make sure to answer it here on the podcast for you guys. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. Florida State is on a 2-win streak, and right now against 2 ACC foes. So yeah, we've got some energy coming out, and we look forward to talking to you guys on the next episode.